So let's like do some brief introductions, and I'm gonna let you guys introduce yourselves, but like don't tell me your whole life story, but like a little bit about like who you are and like what you both do with Marriott.
Okay, first I was born. No, I'm Alex Stein. I'm the Director of Marketing and Social Media Analytics for Marriott International. Came to Marriott by way of Starwood, where I was working as our Manager of Social and Brand Intelligence for a couple of years.
Awesome. My name is Sandra Pimentel. I am also Starwood Legacy, now Marriott. I oversee our global social media operations at Marriott, which is a new role here. I previously did kind of the same role at Starwood, overseeing operations as well around social.
Awesome. And I'm Kerry Flynn. I'm a business reporter at Mashable, and I cover the business of technology, primarily like the tech giants. But I also cover other industries and how like technology is affecting them. And I think the whole hotel industry is a great example of that. And other fun fact is before I was invited by Sprinklr to moderate this panel, I was like, you don't know how well I know Marriott. It's because essentially I was like raised on this brand because my father's runs a sales company, a CEO of a sales company, and so my whole life I've stayed in Marriott hotels, and my bed at home is a Marriott bed. So I am like an essential Marriott fanboy, and I'm happy to be here. But let's talk less about me and more about Marriott. So I guess given like what you guys just described as your roles, I'd love to hear more about how social media and analytics and operations really like kind of underlie both Marriott and Starwood. And I guess if you could like, either of you decide to like distill like what it really means, me putting those words, social media, operations, analytics, what it really means to those two brands, and now one big brand. Whoever wants to take that one.
With 30 brands, having a very strong foundation is critical to building out a social media enterprise. So for us, it's not about Marriott, it's not about Starwood anymore, it's Marriott as a whole, and it's 30 brands. And for us, it needs to start with analytics. It needs to start with operations and analytics combined in order for us to enhance our customers' experiences across the organization and across all of our properties and brand experiences.
Great.
I guess I would add that, when it comes to considering operations and analytics, I think that the roles that those functional areas take on varies a lot depending on the size of the company, how many brands you might have. In the case of Marriott, as Kerry and Sandra both mentioned, we have not only 30 brands, we now have roughly 6,000 hotels across 100 countries and a total of over 1 million guest rooms worldwide. So figuring out how to manage social media operations and analytics, not just for our 30 brands, and on average, each of the 3 social media accounts that they operate through at least Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, we also need to make some sense of that ecosystem for all of our hotels. In total, while we were at Starwood, we had 4,000 individual social media accounts in our ecosystem. Now that our company's increased in size, obviously, the scale and complexity get a bit bigger, but the principles that we apply in leading through sound operations and an analytical framework are the same.
So I'm curious, as you guys mentioned, like you both came from Starwood. So really, like the biggest like merger in travel, like hotel industry happened. Like I remember being like, "Whoa, that happened! It's crazy." So walk me through without getting
felt the
like,
same way.
Yeah, exactly. It's impressive. So without getting like too technical about like what was happening like on the books, just like I'm curious about like what happened when you said all those accounts you had at Starwood, and then you have all these accounts at Marriott. You have all these tools and all these people. How did they come together? And I'm sure it's still in the making. Like nothing's set in stone right now, but I'm curious about what you guys experienced the last only few months, essentially, and what like you really did to consolidate, if you did consolidate.
Yeah, so the honest answer is it still hasn't come together, and that's okay. The merger was finalized in September. As you can imagine, with all of these stakeholders, from hotels to brands to our field marketing, agencies, operations, analytics, it's not an easy task to get everybody on the same, operating in line with each other, especially when we have very different cultures. So for us, we're still working on it. It's only April. I'm very confident and very optimistic now, probably more so than ever, that we're going to get to an optimal solution for the whole organization around social media and customer experience. Marriott is all about the customer. It's all about our guests, all about the employees. So it's logical to think that that's a direction that we're going in, and I feel very strongly that we will get there in the next year.
Awesome. Is there anything to add in terms of like, I guess like the specific roles, like whether or not, I mean, you don't need to talk about individual people, but I'm curious about like, you bring all these people together and like who then becomes the leader, I guess, because now your titles are Marriott, it's not Starwood. Like that's fascinating to me. Like you took on other responsibilities for a greater brand. So I guess what can you say about like where, kind of how everyone works together and what these roles are?
So I think we've become much more focused than we were in the past, especially on the Starwood side. So it's easy for us to say, Starwood did a great job in the past because we came from Starwood. There is a lot of inefficiencies on the Starwood side, just as there are on the Marriott side. And that's why it's great for these two companies to come together, because we have so many, we've learned a lot. So now we take experiences from both brands and bring them together to form a better structure. And quite frankly, we're much more focused in terms of our strategy for social moving forward and aligned with digital than we have in the past. And one example is the social media roles. So at Starwood, social fell under PR, and now it's a combined role with digital. So we're not just looking at social in a silo. We're expanding beyond that traditional like COE and social media execution, and we're looking at it in unison with all of the other departments across the company.
I think a lot of the talks this morning focused on breaking down silos and figuring out not just solutions to technology integration, but how people work together as well. One of the unique opportunities that I feel Sandra and I have coming from Legacy Starwood and now having our roles at Marriott is that neither of our roles existed before the integration. These were formed in an effort to break down barriers and bring teams together and have more of a centralized structure and approach to operations and analytics. So we're in the process now of really using all of the knowledge and foundation that we built in our past 2 to 4 years of experience, depending on which start date you're focused on, and identifying what our current capabilities are across all of the different stakeholder groups who touch social at Marriott, what's working well, what's not working well, and what their vision is for the new social org now that social and digital work together under one house, and we have all of our great brands, hotels, and social accounts coming together. So we're in the process of figuring out what that future vision looks like and how all of our people and technology come together to serve that mission.
Awesome. Well, let's talk about the title here, Deliver Delight at Scale. So when you say at scale, what is your audience? Like, who are you speaking to? And I find it fascinating. I mean, I use the example of my dad as like the stereotypical businessman who uses Marriott hotels when he travels. Like, when I think of Marriott, I think of that. But when I think of Starwood, that's not what I think of. When I think of the W versus the JW, the Westin versus that, I'm curious about how, in your roles, like, is Marriott speaking to everyone, and especially with social and digital? Like, do you have particular voices for each of the brands? Like, how do you really distill all of that?
I think it varies on a case-by-case basis, right? I think that there are certain brands that are always going to speak a little bit more to a particular audience or have a certain angle to them. Taking W as an example, I think that W has a lot of appeal to millennial travelers and to leisure travelers, that new trend where folks will go on a trip for business and then extend for leisure purposes. We see some really distinctive behavior in booking channels, for instance. Just looking at W hotel guests, they book on average 30% through mobile, whether that's through app or mobile web, as opposed to the rest of our customer base, which is a bit of a lower rate. So in some ways, we're able to pinpoint distinct audiences and then use social analytics from listening and engagement insights to understand what resonates with those audiences and better cater our marketing and our brand messages to them. At the same time, we also just need to serve people who are looking for a hotel in a different city or business travelers where that's the rate that worked for them. So we really do our best to live that personalization at scale.
Awesome. Great. Well, I guess you have these huge brands. You mentioned some of them. We talked about them. When you have all these brands, do you place your bets in particular, I guess, technologies and channels, like social media platforms? You mentioned the W, like, does the W love this tool versus Marriott traditionally uses this tool? Like, obviously in your roles, like, do y'all just use the same resources, or is there more of a structure for each individual account, each individual brand?
So it's different by brand. I mean, both brands, Starwood and Marriott, are known for innovation and for trying out new tools. And one example, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call Snapchat a new tool, but recently we just launched the series, the 6 days, 7 nights for Marriott Rewards. And we're testing that out, right? Like, see what resonates with our audience. Clearly, we are targeting millennial, Gen Z audience with that approach. But obviously, it's not our only target market. It's a big one, but we're constantly innovating, trying out different platforms to see what resonates with our customer base, which is very broad, right? Like it spans from our millennials to business travelers. That could be millennials, but probably maybe also in the older category. But we need to listen to what our customers say, whether it's through surveys, whether it's through social media, and just have a combined strategy so that we get to the market and understand what our target audiences want to hear.
Awesome.
Experience, yeah.
Well, no, go ahead.
Oh, I mean, Sandra said it perfectly. I just think that I would layer on each channel obviously serves a slightly different function depending on how your customers are using it. Like, not everything fits into these broad strokes, but Twitter obviously is more of a customer service channel. I think that the statistic is something like 80% of customer service interactions now happen through social media. Twitter is our primary channel for service. For Instagram, we find that users are oftentimes looking for inspiration or maybe researching what a destination might look like before planning a trip. So in picking between a couple of brands or a couple of locations, we use Instagram to be really visually appealing and inform those decisions. And Facebook, I guess, really varies between paid and organic, which we've all heard so many times that organic is dead, right? But you still need to have some kind of consistent messaging through organic on Facebook just to serve as kind of a social coffee table, if you will, right? Mm-hmm. Here are the things that we lay out and present when someone comes and willingly visits our page, as opposed to paid, which is a little bit more tactical and objective-oriented. Combining our ability to target based on Facebook demographics and interests, as well as our own customer web traffic data, we're able to do some really effective programmatic and paid targeting through Facebook in particular.
Awesome. Well, you just mentioned, like, I feel like all the big brands in social and the big platforms. I'm curious about if there's kind of a new platform or like tool that you guys are looking to these days that you're maybe experimenting with. I know you mentioned Snapchat's still kind of an experiment for you guys, and that makes sense. But is there a name that you didn't just mention that we aren't hearing all the time that you guys are seeing worth your time?
In my perspective, I don't know it's necessarily about a new or emerging tool. I mean, if you ever hear Gary Vaynerchuk speak, he describes this emergence of new platforms and how if you distribute your bets through 20, one of them is going to be right and it'll pay off big. Mm-hmm. So I think to a certain extent, we've pioneered in those areas, like by being one of the first 12 brands on Instagram to be able to sponsor posts. Mm-hmm. Obviously a few years outdated. More recently with Snapchat, we've deployed geofences around individual hotel properties. So now when you're at one of our locations and you're flipping through Snapchat, one of the first screens that you'll see is usually some branded message from the hotel that you can send out to your friends. I think that also, in addition to thinking about emerging platforms, there are emerging uses for platforms too. We had a partnership with Uber a couple of years ago where the campaign was focused on having members link their SPG, their loyalty rewards, and their Uber accounts. As a reward, they would get a certain dollar or point value for every dollar that they spent on Uber. And in addition, we were able to create this really great experiential marketing strategy where after linking Uber and SPG accounts, users had a chance to get a sweet ride, S-U-I, sweet ride. Analyst, not English. But where we would have an Uber that was sort of retrofitted to look like one of our hotel luxury rooms that would come and pick you up.
That's pretty sick. Awesome. Great. Well, I guess because we're at Sprinklr's conference, I want to talk about like Sprinklr without being like too promotional, but like would love to hear obviously about how you guys are using the tool, like how long like I guess Starwood and Marriott has been a client, and just like how that tool fits into like the greater tech stack that you obviously have behind the scenes helping you serve your customers.
So our relationship with Sprinklr spans back about 4 years. It started with Starwood, and now we're using Sprinklr at Marriott. The experience has been tumultuous at times, but in my history in working with vendors, it's probably been the best partnership that I've experienced with a vendor. From the beginning, I mean, we had struggles, obviously onboarding over 1,200 properties at Starwood, social care team. I mean, Starwood has an award-winning customer care team with 33 associates across 5 call centers, managing multiple millions of messages on a monthly basis in 15 languages. So establishing that foundation and making sure that that was strong took a lot of actual manpower, and Sprinklr was there from the beginning with us. Like, I know that my account director was up at 2 in the morning with me, configuring the tool so that we could operate the following week during Christmas, which was not pleasant, but it's etched in my memory. So that was the beginning of our relationship, and throughout the whole process, when we were having issues with reporting, they flew out their developer, and 2 engineers to sit down with us and work through the issues that we were having. And the next day, those issues were resolved, and it was just a matter of conversation. And on a day-to-day basis, our success team is with us. We are constantly communicating. So overall, our partnership has been superb. Yes, we have issues from a technology standpoint sometimes, definitely not that much anymore, but I think that you experience that with every vendor. But a lot of times we try to switch from vendors, and we have these Band-Aid solutions that don't last very long because we don't invest the time with those vendors in order to get the tool to a point where it could actually support us 2, 3, 4, 5 years down the line. So in my experience, our partnership with Sprinklr has been the best one that I've ever experienced. And not that we're selling Sprinklr, it truly has been that partnership that I haven't really experienced with a vendor in the past. And that's because we've invested the time, but they've also invested the time with us.
Just adding to that point about time investment, I think what is often said about Sprinklr is that its best attribute is also its toughest challenge, which is how customizable it is. In our case, we weren't really able to get users to leverage it to its full potential just out of the box. So we did really have to invest in that time and partnership to get it up to speed. Thinking back to the social ecosystem that I just mentioned, and also speaking to the tech integration that you just mentioned, think about those 30 brands, those 3 channels each, plus those now 6,000 hotels and all of their social media accounts. We needed to standardize measurement and not just use every single so let me actually take a step back, breaking down our measurement a little bit and how we evolved over time. We really measure data in 3 main buckets using Sprinklr. First was own channel metrics, both paid and organic, so anything you can pull in through a channel API. Second bucket was social listening, and then the third bucket was social commerce and attribution, being able to tie web traffic and in turn bookings and revenue back to social media marketing activities. Those are the 3 pillars that we really focused on and had to evolve our capabilities in each of those areas over the years. In our own channel API data, we didn't just want every single metric that was coming from each of the channel APIs. We developed custom metrics and then standardized dashboards so that we could make these user-facing and self-serve for all of our 4,000 users. Within social listening, we had to develop really advanced Boolean capabilities using the architecture within Sprinklr to get not just every mention of our brands and hotels, but also mentions by known loyalty or rewards members, regardless of what they were talking about. And then in the final bucket, our revenue and booking and web traffic data used to live in an entirely separate system from all of the rest of our social reporting data. So we invested the time in the first-to-market Sprinklr Omniture integration, now bringing all of that attribution data directly into the Sprinklr platform for the first time.
Great. That's like what everyone wants to hear in social, right? The fact that you're actually being able to attribute the money that you make and like keep your jobs in there. That's awesome. Great. Well, so I guess a fun question for you. Like, I mean, I'm looking at Twitter all the time now, and I see all this beef happening between brands on Twitter. I think that's like it's always been the hot thing to do, but it's getting even more fun these days, I guess, because there's nothing else to do, is like Wendy's versus McDonald's, and then there's like Delta versus United, and there's like all this like tension that is shown, and these like brands get personalities, and it excites the customer. I'm curious about, I don't really see any of that in the hotel industry, but like correct me if I'm wrong. If like you guys use Twitter and social tools, not just to engage with me as the customer who checks in, is like, so happy to be at Marriott, but like having more of a fun voice. Is that something that any of your brands delve into? And if so, why not?
I mean, we want to have a fun voice. We just don't necessarily need to be controversial in order to have that fun voice. No, Marriott has no beef with anyone out there, especially on social. And even if we did, I feel like we would have a strategy to address it. So I think we're prepared, hopefully.
We try to keep it classy.
Yeah.
No, I see that.
And travel is usually a positive experience unless, there's situations that arise. But no beef.
Awesome.
We'll go on record for that.
Perfect. Good to know. Awesome. Well, beyond, we've talked obviously a lot about social, but I see like other tech integrations and automation that's happening to these hotels, and I'm sure that's not like your particular day-to-day job, but like I'm curious about it. Like having a better mobile app, having like better mobile check-in. Like, what are you now seeing with both Marriott and Starwoods as brands like being more tech savvy and digital forward beyond using Sprinklr, beyond social media?
We were just talking about this over lunch, the mobile check-in piece. I mean, mobile is huge. It's not a channel, it's where you are and where you're reached 24/7, or where you're able to reach any kind of brand or any kind of brand or customer service that you're working with. So within the mobile space in particular, I mean, when we were coming from Starwood, SPG was the first to partner with Apple on a keyless app. And it was like magic seeing it unlock the room for the first time just with your phone. Now we're at a point with Marriott's Rewards app where you don't even need to speak to a person to check out if you don't want to. You can just click a button and say, okay, done, bye. Yeah. They know what time to clean up your room. And it creates more of a frictionless experience. So that's where I see some of the opportunity in mobile. Also with emerging beacon technology, I think there are some potential applications. What do you think?
I mean, and just in speaking to that mobile app example, this morning, one of the presenters mentioned that some of our customers don't necessarily want that red carpet experience every time they go into the hotel. So we need to understand who those customers are and provide them with the solutions that'll make for that frictionless experience. So in the case of the mobile app, that addresses that. If you don't want to talk to somebody, you don't have to. And if you do, then we're more than happy to talk to you. But in this case, we're listening to our customers, we're listening to our employees, and trying to address those needs as they come up.
Awesome. Well, that's exciting. I would love to future checking in, doing it all on my phone. Sounds awesome. And you talked a little bit about voice. I find that being like kind of a new cool thing of hotels, whether or not they have like an Echo or Alexa system built in, or have a Google Home, or have some type of like, I don't even have to pick up the phone to call the front desk. But we'll talk about that more in the future. But I'd love to open it up to, honestly, an audience Q&A. We have so many people in the audience. Like any questions, the hard questions I didn't ask, please throw them this way.
And
we have a mic.
Let me just give you the microphone.
Hi, I may have missed this in the beginning, but who were you guys using before Sprinklr to do a similar thing? And when you were initially evaluating Sprinklr, who did you evaluate it against? What other vendors did you look at?
Okay.
Sorry for the
should I mention?
I'm glad you asked it.
I'm glad you asked. I mean, I feel like at this point they're standard. We've been in this industry for so long. This is probably my third iteration of evaluating social media management solutions. So your standard Salesforce, Social Studio, right? At the time, Radiant 6 was still probably a separate product than the Buddy Media. Expion, Sysmos, other contenders, Percolate, Brandwatch was another contender at the time. Let's see. I know that like 8 years ago we evaluated over a dozen vendors, but now many of them don't exist. So for me to go all the way back then, I can't even remember at this point. But Adobe, also another solution, so the social product. Sprout Social at one point, so I'm sure you can Google a whole list of them, and we probably interview them. Oh, why Sprinklr? So it really depends on the industry. In a previous company that I was with, one of the big things was multi-language support. Here at Starwood, and probably anywhere else, from an analytics standpoint, they were top-notch, right? Like being able to analyze our social data in one interface, the user experience, and being able to create your own reports was something that we didn't see with other vendors. So for us, it was being able to support an organization at the scale of Starwood, and now it's looking at it at the scale of Marriott. And you're looking at a lot of different stakeholders, starting with customer service. Like I mentioned, 33 associates. We're going through millions of messages a month. We need to easily be able to route those messages to different associates based on language. It's not every tool that can support that. So looking at it from the different use cases, for it to be complicated enough to support an organization centrally, but also simple enough for a hotel property to execute on social was critical. And for us, Sprinklr was able to provide that level of complexity, but also that level of simplicity, although that's also been a challenge, but it's been addressed.
Hi. So you guys were talking about things that you're doing to help those who maybe don't want to talk to a person with, mobile checkout or a keyless app. And I work in the travel industry, and it made me think about an experience I had recently with a brand that was not one of Marriott's 30 brands. I was looking to book a hotel, and everything was sold out online everywhere I looked. So I called, thinking they might be able to do something extra, or maybe have something that I couldn't see, and they kind of rudely told me that they couldn't see anything more than what I saw online, which I understand. But it gave me the thought of how, as customer service technology increases, what is the role of people, right? And so what is customer care from a people standpoint when technology is able to fill the roles of what people are or have been? And I'm just wondering, is there anything you guys are doing as you think about the integration of tech versus your customer care team, and what value do they bring to the table from a human standpoint?
We've been having these discussions. Obviously, there's multiple tools that are duplicative between both organizations, so Starwood and Marriott. And our focus in the beginning was very much on platforms, right? Like trying to decide which platforms were the best to keep for the company. But the problem was that the issue doesn't lie in the technology. The technology is the easy part. Like, we pretty much know the functionality that we all need, right? We need to be able to publish. We need to be able to report and see how our content is performing. Listening, we need to be able to listen. So the technology is the easy part. It's the processes behind it that are what we need to figure out and make sure that they're working effectively. But even before that, we need to think about the customer, right? Like, that's what this is all about. Like, even if we're not as organized as we want to be, or that we will be in a couple of months, the main focus has to be that customer and how we engage with them, and everything around what we do internally to structure our organization should be in support of that. So that's the direction. Well, that's where we are and where we're moving towards. I don't think that Marriott's ever deviated from that, but I think we have a much larger opportunity now with the scale that we have. So I agree with you with the whole customer experience and making sure that we focus on the customer so that technology isn't overtaking that experience. We're all learning together. And I think if we just get back to basics, we'll start realizing where the opportunities exist in order to engage with these customers and make it better, more than what the technology is.
Yeah, I don't think I ever see technology and hospitality replacing people or a personal touch, which is, I think, more important arguably now than ever. When you see automation gone wrong in a lot of circumstances, think about your experience going through airports. You no longer have a server to talk to if you want to. You just sit down at a dirty table, you push a few buttons on an iPad, and then a meal, probably cold and without a fork, shows up. Thinking about how technology really improves and helps people instead of maybe displacing them, I think about service, obviously, as one of our best examples and one of the most customer-facing, to Sandra's point. You shouldn't have to tweet it, Marriott assist, and then have a customer service person call, and they don't tie the two together, right? They should be able to recognize what your issue is from the first point of contact to the point of resolution, regardless of which channel or touch point it's coming through. To give another very tangible example, for both SPG and Marriott have different tiers of membership. Their most elite from SPG is called Ambassador Guest. For Marriott, I think it's Elite Concierge. And these guests are folks who have stayed over 100 nights in a year at one of our hotels. So they are disproportionately valuable. And we offer certain amenities and different types of customer service at that level. How that works through customer care. If we've tested pilots where if we have a known ambassador guest who posts something on social media and we pick that comment up, rather than sitting in our general customer care queue, which already has a response usually within 24 hours, we can then capture that message and send an automated email alert directly to that guest's ambassador so they can respond more quickly and in a more personalized way.
Perfect. Thank you very much for your time today. So my question relates to how your digital social initiatives link to the overall business strategy of Marriott and Starwood as the mergers happened. So would love to understand specifically how the social initiatives impact the pain points of the industry. So a couple of the pain points that come to mind are being able to understand leisure bookings and help them book directly on the website versus going through the Expedias and saving 15% of the revenue, or having a deeper understanding of the corporate experience. So there are quite a few like that. So I'd love to understand one or two key examples that you can highlight where you've been successful in using social to impact or execute that business strategy. Maybe one success story and one story where you learned something that you could do differently from.
I'm giving this a second to think on it.
It's a long second. I don't have an answer for that. That's probably not a great answer. I feel like it's a longer conversation to have.
Yeah, I guess I hope this doesn't seem like a cop-out, but because our businesses are so recently combined and we're realigning on the broader business's goals and objectives, we're still in the process of shaping how social and digital are going to level up to those objectives. Overall, our focus is on distinguishing our brands, gaining portfolio recognition, and improving customer experience. So those are some of the key pillars that we're focused on right now. I guess as part of an integration effort, guest recognition is a really solid example, where in the same instance that I just gave, where you want to be recognized across all of your touch points, whether it's digital, social, in person, or through a call center, we're integrating that same technology for our guest databases so that when you show up at a Marriott hotel, you're recognized as a member in status regardless of which program you initially came from. Now, as that relates to social, just carry that same example a step further. Once we have integrated booking systems, integrated guest data systems, then we'll come to a place where I think we're more fully able to leverage our combined data sets in order to improve all of our marketing and operations and customer service through social.
Nope, sorry. I'll take one more this side, then I'll be over with you.
Okay, hopefully this is an easier one, I promise. But so Alex, I think you talked earlier about data, and thanks for talking about how you think about it. And you mentioned social media attribution. And I just want to say, I hope that's getting easier and not harder, right, as we go forward. But if you could talk a bit more about what are the real challenges that you've just seen around social media attribution, and kind of where are you tackling, key problems and how you're doing that?
So I come from social and not broader digital analytics, so I have some experience in that realm, but it's really not my bread and butter. What I see as some of our main challenges, though, through a social lens, are how we attribute different interactions and touch points across our whole digital, social, and in-person brick and mortar ecosystem. Sorry, give me 1 second. Repeat the last part of your question, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, the last part was just like what are some of the challenges with that?
Right. So given that we're obviously still integrating technology, still figuring out how to identify guests across all of those touch points, I would say that this whole last click attribution has been one of the challenges that I've seen. Again, speaking from my own experience and from social, I think that if we had a better way of gathering and organizing data across all of those different types of interactions, whether you're clicking on a post, doing a Google search and going to a property website, talking freely and like free text about a property or about planning a trip, then we would be able to have some better weight to all of those different factors across the digital, social, and in-person experience that influence a purchase activity. But through not only Marriott Starwood, but other companies that I've worked with in my previous agency life, I've seen us coming to sort of a window with last click attribution and where we go from there. In the future, I see a lot more weighting and a lot more exploration of how we use multi-touch and different data sources.
Hi, I had a question around governance. Given 30 brands you mentioned that you have, in trying to ensure that every brand and the multitude of accounts falling under those brands are fulfilling the standards of what you have for storytelling, for customer engagement, how do you operationalize that? How do you ensure that teams who have different experiences and skill sets are fulfilling the standards so that there's some continuity across the customer experience?
So we've, I don't want to say that the years at Starwood were a pilot, but now being at Marriott, I like to think that the process that we built at Starwood was just a preparation for what we're going to be doing with Marriott moving forward. I mean, we had 11 brands, right? So we worked towards centralizing social media at Starwood much more than Marriott currently does. We're working towards a more centralized function within Marriott around social now, but we have that test case with Starwood. We got all the brands, we got all the hotels, social care teams on one centralized platform, which was Sprinklr. We ensured that all the brands had social media playbooks, that all of their content was classified in a universal with content category so that we could measure how content was performing. You know, simple things like making sure that we have branded bit.lys for all of our brands. Security, being able to centralize, make sure that all of our accounts are in one Facebook Business Manager portal. Simple things that you think are just, you know, standard and everybody should have are not easy in a large enterprise. And we're talking Starwood, which is much smaller than Marriott and much smaller than where we are now in a combined organization. So we were able to do that successfully at Starwood. There were key learnings and failures at Starwood that we're going to be bringing over to Marriott to make an even better organization around social. One of the struggles at Starwood was social was still very siloed, even though it was completely embraced and we all knew that what the value of social was, it was still very siloed. And in an optimal scenario, social would be baked into every part of your organization. But that's a difficult feat for an organization the size of Marriott. But there is such a great opportunity because of the industry that we're in. We're about the customer, we're about the customer experience. And the customer experience no longer starts and ends at the hotel property. I mean, it starts before they even get to the hotel, like when they're searching for the property to stay at, when they start engaging on social channels. And for us, we need to make sure that we're buttoned up internally, whether it's making sure we have playbooks for every brand, that all of our customer service teams know how to respond for each brand, whether it's in the voice of the customer or that we're listening for the same tools, so making sure that we have a centralized listening practice. There's a lot of opportunities in order to centralize, but not be so centralized where we can't innovate, so trying out different technologies. But having a structure so that we're all aligned and we don't feel like we're supported and working for the same company. So we have a structure from Starwood that we're going to be optimizing across the organization at Marriott and making much better than what it was. But it's great that we already have those learnings and those failures from both combined companies in order to support us moving forward. So we know the direction we want to go in. It's just a matter of executing in the next couple of months to get us there.
Great.
I probably don't need this on what, but do you all use a team member or an employee advocacy program in your social, since that is such a big piece of the experience once people get to the property? Do you have like employee advocates or employee ambassadors, any kind of program like that?
So do we have them? We have many employee advocates.
Right, but a structured program.
A structured program, not currently, no.
Okay.
There's a huge opportunity for that. There was a huge opportunity for that at Starwood, which I don't think we definitely didn't tap into. But now at Marriott, we have an even larger opportunity. So
yeah, it would be a big program, big project for you, but I wondered if it was something you're looking at doing.
Probably not. We've dabbled in it. So last year, we definitely dabbled in it, and we're dabbling in it this year. 2018 might make more sense for us than this year.
All right, I think we're out of our time. Yes, one more? Okay.
You've talked a lot about like care and listening and all of those functions, I guess, that are now becoming more popular with enterprises. What's next? What's big on your priority list? Are you looking at like chatbots? As you mentioned, employee advocacy, anything big and fun that you're excited about?
There's a big focus on real-time currently. So you may have heard of Marriott's MLive Studio, which is its command center. And they're using technology that doesn't just use keyword-based social listening, but it's geofence social listening, so that in real time, we can see what's trending among our guests, if there are any issues that need attention, if there are any crises that need intervention, or if there's an opportunity for a huge surprise and delight, or to blow some customer experience out of the water. I know we're out of time, so as a very quick example, we try as best we can, Marriott's trying as best it can to do real-time marketing and make sure that its marketing is relevant and adding value and creating awesome customer experiences. So when Pokemon Go first came out, we picked up on a conversation from one of our guests on social that they were trying to travel through all of the different continents to catch them all. And apparently there are 1 or 2 Pokemon which are only based in very specific areas. So Marriott sponsored a worldwide trip for that guest to complete his mission, catch them all, and then celebrate that experience through Marriott on social.
Lucky dude. Awesome. Okay, well, we're officially out of time, and thank you guys all for coming. Hope you learned something, and we'll be around the rest of the day, so you can come ask other questions. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you guys.
Thanks so much.
Thank you guys.